So we'll be reading the last unanswered question. Turns out so many questions, and A Course in Miracles will have you asking of yourself questions you never thought to ask. And it will not leave you hanging for lack of answers that you can understand and appreciate. Questions you never considered might seem strange, others unimportant, while still others appear as the most fundamental questions of all, such as, what do I want to do with my life? And then there's the most important question you could ever ask of yourself: what am I? And there are so many more. In this session, we'll look at a question that has gone unanswered and has left many of us sitting on the fence. But at what cost? Welcome to Miracles on High Plains. I'm your host, Jonaca, and our reader today is David S.
Do you not see that all your misery comes from the strange belief that you are powerless? Being helpless is the cost of sin. Helplessness is sin's condition, the one requirement that it demands to be believed. Only the helpless could believe in it. Enormity has no appeal save to the little, and only those who first believe that they are little could see attraction there. Treachery to the Son of God is the defense of those who do not identify with him. And you are for him or against him. Either you love him or attack him, protect his unity, or see him shattered and slain by your attack.
So there are all these opposites that are identified in the Course in Miracles. In this paragraph, they refer to, on one end is helplessness, and on the other end is being powerful. And helplessness is a term quite familiar to people. I don't think it needs a whole lot of explanation, but powerfulness is not a term that is even considered positive by many. It's couched in misunderstanding. And so A Course in Miracles says that's actually the gift that you've inherited from God. So I wanted to do a deep dive on power before we go on, so that we understand the context of how it's used in A Course in Miracles. And we're talking not political power like a dictator might exercise, or economic power like a business monopoly might exercise. We're talking about the power that God has given to individuals, God-given power. And how does it show up? And because it takes many forms, it's a universal gift that expresses itself in many ways. Here are some of them. It's in your willpower, or your power of mind, your power to choose, your power of thought, the power of a healed mind, especially, and the power to direct your thinking. Some examples of it would be the power to decide to turn your will and your life over to the care of God. That's a power of your mind to make a new choice for yourself. Or the power to improve your conscious contact with God, praying for knowledge of his will, and the power to carry out God's will in your own life. So it's a God-given power. These are just some of the forms. Then it shows up in other forms as well. And I've categorized these somewhat arbitrary. It's my own collection of ideas, but I've taken all this largely from Course of Miracles. It's the power of the Holy Spirit's purpose. If you lack a purpose, well, the Holy Spirit will give you a purpose, and with that comes power to fulfill that purpose in your life, which is the power to heal, the power to work miracles, the power to add to the kingdom of heaven, and the power of your creative will. Working miracles is an example of the power of your creative will. There's also the power of, and we're not defining all these terms here because that would take too long. This is just meant to be a quick flyby of the uses of power, the power of love, the power to create. And there's this statement in the Course: everything he created is given all his power. And so you and I were created by the Creator. We are given all his power because the power is part of him and shares his being with him. It is an attribute that comes naturally as a result of being created by the source of everything. That's power, God-given power. We'll go on.
No one believes the Son of God is powerless, and those who see themselves as helpless must believe that they are not the Son of God. What can they be except his enemy? And what can they do but envy him, his power, and by their envy make themselves afraid of it? These are the dark ones, silent and afraid, alone and not communicating. Fearful the power of the Son of God will strike them dead and raising up their helplessness against him. They join the army of the powerless to wage their war of vengeance, bitterness, and spite on him, to make him one with them. Because they do not know that they are one with him, they know not whom they hate. They are indeed a sorry army. Each one is likely to attack his brother or turn upon himself as to remember that they thought they had a common cause.
Mm-hmm. So a moment ago, we spoke about God-given power. Now we should talk about the opposition. What is the ego? It's an attempt to deny your God-given power. It's an attempt to have you join the army of the powerless, make you helpless, incapable of change, in particular, incapable of changing your mind and forgiving and healing. It's the army of the powerless. And that message has more prominence in our world than the message of all of us have been given the power of the Creator. And so there's a overcoming. Now you have a choice. You have two messages which are very different in nature. You might not have heard the other message about the power of the Creator being given you, but now you have. And now you have a choice. And that's what freedom is. It's the ability to choose for yourself, not to be left with only one option of being helpless. So the ego would have you join the army of the powerless, a sorry army indeed, where oh, by the way, a byproduct of the army of the powerless is that you lack those things that you need to heal, to be happy, to love, to live forever, that all those things are lacking. And therefore, it's describes a sorry army indeed, an army lacking in the resources needed for life. Susie?
I think I heard you say something really important, Jonica. And I often hear the question, why is it so hard? Or why do I keep going back? Or why can't I get this? Or I pray and I pray and I pray. And you said something like for so many years or most of the world or most of our lives, we thought we only had one power. We only thought we had one voice. And we're just learning since the course that we have another voice and we have another choice and we can choose again. But that's why sometimes it just seems so, for me, I'll speak for me, so difficult because I've been so used to, or why it was especially so difficult in the beginning, and it still is now at times, because that voice is so strong and so prevalent and all I knew for so long. It's wonderful to know I have another choice, but it isn't always easy. So that's where the gentleness of, okay, right, I've been this way for decades. I'm just starting to have another choice. And, so I just wanted to make that point because it really wasn't lost on me. Why, even still, it just seems so difficult because the ego is so loud.
And yeah, and as you say, we've been enculturated and educated under that messaging system. Atisha?
Yeah, I have a shockingly a real world application that just happened a few minutes ago. I went outside to my car and realized that I mistakenly left the doors unlocked and someone rifled through my car and everything was everywhere. And I just remember saying to my friend, I feel so violated. And to read this line, they joined the army of the powerless to wage their war of vengeance, bitterness, and spite. I feel it in myself to go down that road of feeling bitter and spiteful toward whoever did this.
Yes.
But there was that spark of something in me that it was like the door open to compassion for this person, or even just curiosity. What is this person's life like that this is what they have to do to fulfill some need? And now that that spark has gone off, I still have the option to go down the road of bitterness and spite. So it's like a little ember that I need to blow on so that it can turn into a flame of compassion, so that I don't have to do the thing that it's almost like, the automatic thing of being bitter toward that person. Yeah, so this is really making sense.
Great. Wow. Thank you, Atisha. That's very powerful. Particularly because it just happened and it's so applicable to what we're reading here. It really is a miracle that after being robbed, we'll call it, that you could then take the time to consider the other person's point of view and what it must be like for them to how their life may be, that this is what they do on a Saturday morning. I think that's just so compassionate. Thank you for sharing that. Heather?
I love that too. Thank you, Atisha. What immediately came to me was that there are no small upsets. The lesson, there are no small upsets. And you just took that situation and are working to turn it into something beautiful. So thank you for that example.
That's what it is. It's turning it into something beautiful. That's what a miracle worker is. I used to call it when you're given lemons, make lemonade. Little do we know it's a metaphor for making miracles. Thank you. We'll go on.
Frantic and loud and strong, the dark ones seem to be, yet they know not their enemy, except they hate him. In hatred they have come together, but have not joined each other. For had they done so, hatred would be impossible. The army of the powerless must be disbanded in the presence of strength. Those who are strong are never treacherous. because they have no need to dream of power and to act out their dream. How would an army act in dreams any way at all? It could be seen attacking anyone with anything. Dreams have no reason in them. A flower turns into a poisoned spear. A child becomes a giant, and a mouse roars like a lion. And love is turned to hate as easily. This is no army, but a madhouse. What seems to be a planned attack is bedlam.
So the army of the powerless must be disbanded in the presence of strength. So I'd like to connect that with what Atisha just shared, that she had in front of her a choice of participating in the army of attack that would be very angry and very mad at what just happened. And we would kind of understand her reaction. It's not that we couldn't conceive of not doing that ourselves, but that she also had a choice to align with the presence of strength and spiritual power and rise up to a higher plane. And which one makes you feel free? Which one brings you alive and reinforces the truth of what you are? David?
The army of the powerless is weak indeed. It has no weapons and it has no enemy. Yes, it can overrun the world and seek an enemy, but it can never find what is not there. Yes, it can dream it found an enemy, but this will shift even as it attacks, so that it runs at once to find another and never comes to rest in victory. And as it runs, it turns against itself, thinking it caught a glimpse of the great enemy who always eludes its murderous attack by turning into something else. How treacherous does this enemy appear, who changes so it is impossible even to recognize him?
So you might ask, what is all this talk for the last two paragraphs about the army of the powerless? Well, they're describing an army that's looking for a fight and that is willing to change enemies. It really doesn't matter what it fights about or who it fights, as long as there's an opportunity to be in conflict. And so this is the nature of the ego. The specifics of what it's fighting against, angry about, matters not to the ego as long as you continue to engage in attack and anger. David, you had your hand up?
I did, because all of these paragraphs I can relate to in the last few days, in which I got into a mental condition where I felt helpless before my ego. And it started doing things that had a very negative effect in my life. And I just couldn't shake it. As much as I tried, I was stuck in this ego world. And I felt helpless. And I even said, why did I do this? Because I was helpless. Jerry, you're not on mute.
I did it.
And, I'm reflecting on what Atisha said before, and that beautiful transition to compassion. And I thought about, now, what would my reaction be? I would lambaste myself for leaving the car unlocked. And I would be, that's the way my ego goes. No matter what I do, and what happens, there's a part of me that attacks myself in this illusory world. And it would take me a while to get to the compassion point for myself, which is just as important as compassion for my brother. If I don't have compassion for myself, how can I have compassion for my brother? So I'm working on that the last few days and trying to recapture some self-compassion and to recapture love and stop being a member of the sorry army. So I needed to I thought I needed to share that. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm glad you did. What David just illustrated and Atisha before him is the art of miracles. It's taking the truth, the poetic imagery of the army of the powerless that is presented here, and connecting the dots into their own life, seeing the universal truth applicable to their own situation. There I am. This is a lesson I can learn from. That's the art of miracles. Until we do that, we're just reading information that seems to be removed from our own experience. But once you begin opening to that, these messages are talking about us and our lives. Maybe not every day, but there's somewhere in your life that you can find where these messages apply. That's where the real opportunities to learn and grow arise, is when you're open to the realization that this is me that we're learning about. This is your own life experience and how you process it. Heather?
Yeah, this is so helpful because and what Atisha and David just did was it shows so beautifully how when we're healed, we're not healed alone. So by them sharing what's going on, I'm healing those parts of myself too. And David, I've been through and enjoying something like that too. So when you're sharing what's really going on, I'm healing at the same time. And this is what saves us time. This is the Holy Spirit's function, is to save us time by us being willing to share what's going on.
That's very powerful, Heather. Thank you for pointing it out. For those of you that it might not have immediately been obvious, what Heather is saying is our minds are joined in the healing process. It's not David's healing separately from everybody else in the universe, and Atisha's healing separate, that there's an interconnection that we're not fully conscious of, but that we can become increasingly conscious of, so that when we witness a brother healing, it contributes to our own healing as well. Thank you, Heather, for pointing that out. Susie?
Yeah, thank you, Heather. That's one of my very, very favorite things. When I am healed, I'm not healed alone. So even though in Atisha's situation, that person isn't present, she's still sending love and light and whatever. But when somebody is present in my life and I can exhibit healing in a very ego maniacal, situation, I can then help heal the person in front of me. And that is really, it happens so much in my life, both ways. When I am healed, I am not healed alone. And when the other person is healed, I'm healed because I can help. It says it somewhere in the book, right? I can help but respond to the Holy Spirit's love as opposed to the ego's raucous nature. So I love that too. And I just had to say that. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so this is a foundation for the remainder of our reading today. is this call, constant call of the ego for you to join the army of the helpless. And when you find yourself in a situation, to believe there's nothing you can do about it, that you're a victim, that you must suffer. That's the invitation. But there are unanswered questions that we haven't considered.
Yet hate must have a target. There can be no faith in sin without an enemy. Who that believes in sin would dare believe he has no enemy? Could he admit that no one made him powerless? Reason would surely bid him seek no longer what is not there to find. Yet first, he must be willing to perceive a world where it is not. It is not necessary that he understand how he can see it, nor should he try. For if he focuses on what he cannot understand, he will but emphasize his helplessness and let sin tell him that his enemy must be himself. But let him only ask himself these questions, which he must decide to have it done for him. Do I desire a world I rule instead of one that rules me? Do I desire a world where I am powerful instead of helpless? Do I desire a world in which I have no enemies and cannot sin? And do I want to see what I denied because it is the truth?
Mm-hmm. So these questions, particularly the last one, become the basis for the remainder of our reading here, and we will explore that further in just a moment. But before we do, let's look at what was said just prior to that. It has to do with when you're in a confusing situation, and that can be just about anything. There's a tendency, Susie just called it ego chaos. Any situation, you know, the feeling where your mind feels like it's in the middle of a storm. Atisha calls it an ego storm. When your mind's in the middle of all that, there's a tendency for the mind to want to try to figure it out, to try to parse, evaluate it, put the pieces in their place, and analyze it and understand it. That is a tendency of the mind. That's what minds do, because they try to understand things. Well, but now we're trying to understand the ego's chaos, and the Course says that's a mistake. That's a mistaken use of your attention, and it's a mistaken use of your effort to understand the ego, because ultimately the ego is mad and you can't understand madness. And so the Course, this is perhaps one of the most difficult teachings to suggest, is don't try to understand the ego's madness. And we're talking about the situations in your life that have produced great chaos. It is not necessary that he understand how he can see it, nor should he try. For if he focuses on what he cannot understand, the madness of the army of the powerless, he will but emphasize his helplessness. Do you see? By trying to understand something that is non-understandable, it brings you back to where you started. You still don't understand it, and therefore you feel helpless. It's a trap. It's an invitation to join your mind into a process that has no fruitful healing outcome. Instead of trying to understand the chaos, the Course suggests that you ask yourself the questions about what is it in you. And David, this might be applicable to your situation. And I think I heard you say it. to ask yourself, what is it in you that you want out of this situation? What is it that you're looking for, rather than what is it that happened and why did it happen to me? But what is in your heart to find as a result of this situation? And so there's these series of questions that you can go through. The last one becomes more important, will prove to be very important as we go along. Noel?
For me, the first question can be a trap. If I answer yes to that, I have to add a world that I rule with the guidance of the Holy Spirit, not with my ego. I have to keep reminding myself of that.
Yes, yes, yes. A world that you rule under the Holy Spirit's sponsorship or the Holy Spirit's plan, for sure. Yes, we have, well, all these questions, to Noel's point, can be answered from an awareness of who you are in God's plan, or you can ask the very same questions with no awareness of who you are in God's plan, and you come up with entirely different approaches to it. So the last question before we go on, do I want to see what I denied, the truth of what this situation has for me? Do I want to see what I denied because I want the truth above all else? Or do I want to see it my own way so that I come up as the innocent one, as the one on top, as the right one, the righteous one? What is it that I really want, the truth or my own sense of being right? And we'll explore that further.
And do I want to see what I denied because it is the truth? You may already have answered the first three questions, but not yet the last. For this one still seems fearful and unlike the others. Yet reason would assure you they are all the same. We said this year would emphasize the sameness of things that are the same. This final question, which is indeed the last you need decide, still seems to hold a threat the rest have lost for you. And this imagined difference attests to your belief that truth may be the enemy you yet may find. Here, then, would seem to be the last remaining hope of finding sin and not accepting power.
So in all this materially here, I'm just merely offering an interpretation or a translation. So here's a translation. Given that there is a truth and that there is a lie, do I want the truth because it's true? Or am I willing to compromise and accept an illusion because it makes me feel justified? It makes me feel better. It makes me feel egoic. What is it? Am I willing to pursue the truth even when it may call into question all that I've thought, all that I did in this situation? Am I willing to have my mind changed in pursuit of the truth? This is actually a powerful existential question that has long-term implications. The Course calls it the very last of the unanswered questions. Do I want to see what I denied, the truth, because it is the truth. And we know the workbook lesson, only the truth is true. The false is always false. You can't turn the false into the true, but neither can you mix the truth and false together. So that's the final question. And it turns out that you will face this 1,000 times in your life. When I say 1,000 times, I don't mean that's the exact number. You will face this again and again and again and again until your mind becomes clear that no, I want the truth for its own sake, even if it winds up meaning that I have to change my mind and surrender my preoccupations from before. Heather, you had your hand up.
Yeah, something's coming to me and it's big. It's the whole idea, the last unanswered questions. What came to me is that our fear is not that we're powerless, but that we're powerful beyond measure.
Yes.
And that is where our fear is that when we really know the power of our decision, the power of decision is my own, that it's terrifying to know that we have that kind of power. And so I'm just really understanding why this is the last question, because it goes to the heart of who am I really? And if if I'm using my power, my God-given power in his power, anything is possible. And so I think that's the enormity of that is what really is hitting me here. So I don't know if that makes any sense.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense. It surely does. And yes, this is the bigger context. These are not isolated messages here. They are nested within a broader thought framework, and that is the broader framework that acceptance of the power of God within us is something the ego is greatly afraid of, and therefore the teachings of this world are greatly afraid of our realization of that power. And so, but we have the ability to change our minds and to choose differently than the world has taught us. That's the power of free will. Susie?
I'm missing a little bit of this because I had some minor surgery yesterday. I didn't have my book. But what really just came up as I was just listening is these deep, dark, hidden secrets. And, this deepness in our inner prison that we really don't want to bring out and admit and bring forward to be healing. And that's what I was hearing. How hard that is for, for my Susie self, to really go deep and say, what is it? And what else do I need to know about this Holy Spirit? And please help me heal it. Am I willing to really go that deep? Or else I just stay the same. I guess just get triggered by the same stuff and I don't understand why. And I say that I'm trying, but I'm still choosing for Susie if I don't try to uncover, like I said before, discover and recover. So anyway, I don't know. I'm kind of listening and that's what I'm hearing. And it's so crucial to my healing to get in there and figure out, not figure out with the help of the Holy Spirit, what is it that's keeping me so stuck at times? Anyway, that's why my voice is so passionate, because it's been so important to my healing, this admission of certain things that I haven't ever wanted to admit. Thanks to A Course in Miracles and all of you and Jonaca.
Yeah, thank you, Susie. As a matter of fact, that brings up something that we haven't talked about in a while, and some of you maybe were not around when we originally introduced the idea of the subconscious mind is this darkened space within our mind where all the hurts and regrets and judgments and grievances of our past reside. It's subconscious. It's not something you're fully aware of all the time, but it becomes a false foundation for viewing life. And we said, as Susie said, it remains hidden. But we said that when you clear out the subconscious, that darkened spot, when it's completely cleared, we're talking about the end stage of healing here, completely healed, there is no obstacle whatsoever in your mind to the flow of peace from deep within outward to fill your conscious mind and into the world. It's the removal of all the obstacles. This is what healing is. There's nothing hidden there. And therefore, there's no interference patterns in your own consciousness where a healing thought comes up and then it's countered by a thought of helplessness. The reason why it doesn't come up is because it has no hidden roots anymore. It's all cleared out. And this is our end state goal of the course, is to clear out the shadows, the hidden judgments and guilts and false self-concepts from our subconscious mind. And you can't do this by yourself. You need a guide, the Holy Spirit guide, who understands the territory, has the compass and the map, and has the light to help you through it. But with her help, you can definitely clear these things out. And many of the people in this call have been working on this for years and know this to be their experience. David?
Forget not that the choice of sin or truth, helplessness or power, is the choice of whether to attack or heal. For healing comes of power, an attack of helplessness. Whom you attack, you cannot want to heal. And whom you would have healed must be the one you chose to be protected from attack. And what is this decision but the choice whether to see him through the body's eyes or let him be revealed to you through vision? How this decision leads to its effects is not your problem. But what you want to see must be your choice. This is a course in cause and not effect. Consider carefully your answer to the last question you have left unanswered still, and let your reason tell you that it must be answered and is answered in the other three. And then it will be clear to you that as you look on the effects of sin in any form, all you need is simply ask yourself, is this what I would see? Do I want this?
Oh, now I'm really grateful for that share that Atisha had, where she realized she had a choice, because it's illustrated so well here. They talk about this decision is a choice of whether to see. In this case, she doesn't have a physical image of a person who busted into her car, but a choice to whether see him through the body's eyes or let him be revealed to you through vision. It's a choice. And her choice leads to an effect. But what kind of effect it has is not our concern. It's not our where our attention needs to be. This is a course in cause, not effect. And so the cause comes back to what part of myself in Atisha's situation or in your situation, what part of myself do I want to identify with in responding to this situation? Do I want to identify with the part of my mind that cherishes holy vision and forgiveness and innocence? Or am I willing to just let myself fall back to the old standard of judge the other person as wrong, assign the guilt, and then figure out what the punishment should be? Consider carefully your answer. And I should say, it might seem like trying to do that with every hardship and situation is a lot of work, but what happens is after a series, let's say 3 months of practice, after a series of practice, it becomes second nature. It just becomes a way that you respond. It's like anything, even riding a bicycle is difficult for the very first time, but then shortly, weeks later, you've got it down. And so this might be difficult at first and require attention, but then it becomes natural to accept responsibility for how you choose to see the world. Again, the question is this what I want to see? Do I want to see attack and judgment, or do I want to see vision and holy forgiveness? What is it that you want? It's free will choice.
This is your one decision. This the condition for what occurs. It is irrelevant to how it happens, but not to why. You have control of this. And if you choose to see a world without an enemy, in which you are not helpless, the means to see it will be given you. Why is the final question so important? Reason will tell you why. It is the same as are the other three, except in time. The others are decisions that can be made and then unmade and made again. But truth is constant and implies a state where vacillations are impossible. You can desire a world you rule that rules you not and change your mind. You can desire to exchange your helplessness for power and lose this same desire as a little glint of sin attracts you. And you can want to see a sinless world and let an enemy tempt you to use the body's eyes and change what you desire.
Mm-hmm. So now we get to the core of the what do we mean by the last unanswered question? Essentially, of the hundreds of questions you can ask yourself about your own life in this world, most of them you just change your mind later on. If you make a mistake, you change your mind. However, the Course says with truth, there is with truth an eternal phenomenon. Truth is an attribute of eternity which appears in time. And so your choice as to whether or not you want truth is not something that changes with the situation. I want the truth only if it makes me look good, but I don't want the truth if it takes up too much of my time, or if I don't look good in front of my peers. A choice for truth is a long-standing choice. It's set apart from all the others, and therefore it's a determining factor in your experience of destiny. Said otherwise, until we choose for truth, we delay our progress towards our destiny. A choice for lies, for illusions instead of truth is a delaying maneuver, a defensiveness to keep the ego in power, to keep the army of the helpless in power. A choice for truth is a choice to move forward and progress forward out of the prison cell of the ego. And so it's vital to your own healing, to your own salvation, and has significant implications for everybody else. Recall what Heather said, when one person heals, we're all healing in this together. It has implications for others. Before we go on there, Noel, you raised your hand?
Yeah, I have more resistance in physical matters than interpersonal. Somehow it's easier for me to recognize the truth of someone else and oneness. But when it comes to my own physical needs, that's more difficult. It's like I can't, quote, deny the reality of the physical.
Okay. So, Noel, so you just declared that you can see this. If I'll rephrase it, there's this obstacle and you're aware of it. Well, that's big progress over having an obstacle that you're unaware of. And so what the Course would suggest is you gently pray about that with the Holy Spirit. Not that it be yanked away from you, but that you gradually and gently be able to see things according to the Holy Spirit's point of view, which is essentially what seeking the truth for the truth's sake is all about, is wanting to see things from the Holy Spirit's point of view. So I think you're on your way to healing, Noel, because you know what it is to pray for. And what becomes critical is, do you want the truth above all else?
Thank you. Thank you. That's the next great question.
And that one will never go away. Is it the truth that you really want? That's the last unanswered question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
In content, all the questions are the same. For each one asks if you are willing to exchange the world of sin for what the Holy Spirit sees, since it is the world of sin denies. Since it is this, the world of sin denies. And therefore, those who look on sin are seeing the denial of the real world. Yet the last question adds the wish for constancy in your desire to see the real world. So the desire becomes the only one you have. By answering the final question, yes, you add sincerity to the decisions you have already made to all the rest. For only then have you renounced the option to change your mind again. When it is this you do not want, the rest are wholly answered. Why do you think you are unsure the others have been answered? Could it be necessary they be asked so often if they had? Until the last decision has been made, the answer is both yes and no. For you have answered yes without perceiving that yes must mean not no. No one decides against his happiness, but he may do so if he does not see he does it. And if he sees his happiness as ever changing, now this, now that, and now an elusive shadow attached to nothing, he does decide against it.
So we have another polarity here, and one that's referred to often in miracles, and it uses the term constancy here. The other end of that, of course, would be to be inconstant. Other terms would be consistency versus inconsistency. Some might even think of it as having integrity or lack of integrity. And so, having identified the poles there, the ego is vacillating. The ego is not loyal to anything. It just lives for the sake of conflict. And so it is free to change its mind on any position at any time, as long as it can keep the fight going. It's inconstant, and it lures us, when we get confused by its voice, into being inconsistent. And this proves to be one of the fruits of the Spirit of progress in accepting the Holy Spirit's guidance, is we stop, for the ego is constantly vacillating or oscillating in its decisions. With Holy Spirit guidance, we be more consistently aligned with the guidance of the Holy Spirit. We become more constant. And so the wish for constancy in your desire to see the real world. So Noel, this fits with your question a moment ago, because you have your moments of insight and clarity already. You know what that feels like. But it's a question of that being countered by other moments where we don't see clearly. And so the Course would say it's really about having seen the truth to see it consistently. And just one more footnote to this, in the Manual for Teachers, the characteristics of God's teachers, I think is a very important section. The second attribute after trust is called honesty. But when you read the description, it's really about consistency. Honesty is to be consistently honest, not honest when it's convenient. And so this is a key attribute for progress on the spiritual path, is to be consistent in one's desire to see the truth, to see the real world, even if it means surrendering a long-held attitude or judgment that I may have made in the past. Susie?
Yeah, I just wanted to add for me that, like, when I listen to the voice for the Holy Spirit, or I have a holy incident, aha movement, Heather and I call it my poofer, it's gone. It's just gone. And when I'm still interference, making adjustments, irritated, it's a clear indicator to me that my ego is, it's still there. So that healing feeling, that consistent healing feeling, it's just gone. Whatever I was agitated for, it's laughable almost. It's like, it's laughable. Poof, it's gone. I don't even realize what it was. And that's just the most amazing feeling, because when I'm in the holds of the ego, it seems like it could never be gone, and when it's gone, it's just like, wow, that's truth is true and nothing else. There's no inconsistency with the healing of the Holy Spirit. It's just peace. But there's all kinds of, confusion and ruckus with the ego. So that's how for me, I know if I say I'm okay, I'm just spiritually bypass. I'm like, I'm okay based on what the ego is telling me. But I'm really not okay because it's not gone.
Yeah. I had a little story that just happened yesterday about when it's gone. Talking to someone who's been practicing miracles for 10 years, so has learned a lot there. And we were reading about something about inconsistency. And she said, I can't really identify with that. It doesn't, that's not my experience of it. It's what it was, is she can't remember. It's not in her mind anymore what it's like to be constantly torn between two voices, and the struggle of which one should I listen to now, is I know that she had those years in the past, but it's been so long since that was a part of her day in, day out experience, that she doesn't remember it because it's just tranquil and peaceful. It's gone. The memory of those inner conflicts is not in her mind anymore. And so it's really true. And by the way, what we used to call it writtens, like when someone's gone and you're glad that they're gone. Good riddance. I don't know. I don't know if that has meaning to everybody, but it's like I'm glad those memories are gone. They were never helpful to begin with. So yes, a true change of mind brings about a new perception with a new vision, and one has no need to go back and look at things the way they were. Noelle, you had your hand up?
Just asked myself another question. Why do I want to keep this condition? And 4 or 5 reasons came up right away.
Yes.
And none of them is really too wonderful. And they
Yes.
all actually stem from fear
Yes.
that I wouldn't have what I wanted without the condition. So
Yes.
that's all of that is really helpful, stimulated by what you said earlier.
Yeah. I really like what you're doing there, Noelle, because you're getting to this weed in the mind and wondering, well, why is it that I want to still keep the weeds around? And when you examine all the peripheral ideas associated with that, in the light, when you examine it along with the Holy Spirit's light, you see that they are very poorly formulated reasons, because they're ego formulations. But that would be the advice: is invite the Holy Spirit to join you in that examination. But really good that what you're doing there is you're questioning what might have gone unquestioned otherwise. Heather?
Yeah, that was a great example of what we read the other day about spiritual reason. She just did it.
Yes.
She reasoned with spiritual reasoning. If it's not this, then it must be that. And then there must be something else under that. Oh, then the spirit can reveal what the reason is.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I know in my own process, when I did things like this, I realized the reason I wanted to hold on to that is because it made me look good in front of other people. For in other words, it seemed to bring esteem to me. And when I said, was that really genuine? Is that what true self-regard, positive self-regard is? And I realized, no, that it was a prop. It was based on a falsehood, that if other people esteemed me well, that then I must be doing okay. Then I must be all right. And so I was able to freely and gladly let it go. Susie?
Yeah, I just have to tell Noelle that's exactly what I'm talking about. All those hidden deep secrets and reasons, and and like that just helped me so much, because that's exactly what I'm talking about. And again, when we're healed, we're not healed alone. And so to witness the miracle that Noelle was just talking about with herself helps me to heal and say, yeah. I need to do that too. I need to do that too, what I was saying, get to the root cause. So I just wanted to say that, and that was very helpful, and I'm appreciative.
So I have a meta comment. I think what we're witnessing with Noel's share, or Susie, Heather, Atisha, David, others, sorry if I forgot names. We're witnessing what healing looks like, what the practice of spiritual reason looks like, what choosing again can do. It can cause you to ask questions for sure. But questions intended to expose the ego graffiti that's been written on our minds so that we can clean up those messages and let them go and be free. Where if you're paying attention, you can see it happening right here. And that's a testimony to the power of this teaching system.
Elusive happiness, or happiness in changing form that shifts with time and place, is an illusion that has no meaning. Happiness must be constant because it is attained by giving up the wish for the inconstant. Joy cannot be perceived except through constant vision. And constant vision can be given only those who wish for constancy. The power of the Son of God's desire remains the proof that he is wrong who sees himself as helpless. Desire what you want, and you will look on it and think it real. No thought but has the power to release or kill. And none can leave the thinker's mind or leave him unaffected.
We're going to pause there. So that's the end of this formal section, and we'll cover the lines in the next few sections in a minute. But notice that he's talking about constancy again. And it turns out that many of the attributes of spirit are just that. They're constant. They're not moody, or they don't change with the weather. Happiness is a constant experience. Although in our world, it's taught as, we won the Super Bowl, so we're happy today. Or maybe we won the first round of the playoffs and we're happy, and then we lost the second round, so now we're not happy. So the world teaches a fluctuating, inconstant version of happiness, which the Course says is not really happiness at all. It's moodiness. Instead, happiness is a constant, because it's attained by giving up the wish for the inconstant. So Noel, if you really want to ask yourself a question, and I know you are willing to do these things, ask yourself if you're willing to give up inconstancy. Are you, and you might even ask, well, what do I get to keep by being inconsistent? What are the seeming payoffs of playing both sides of the fence? I'll be on this side one day, on that side the other day. Well, one of the payoffs of constancy we can identify is that joy can be perceived only through constant vision. And this becomes an anchor for me. I'm talking about for me because my acid test of the power of A Course in Miracles is the experience of joy. This is my own, this is what I've assigned myself. And so how is that experienced? It has a condition. It can only be experienced when vision is constant. You cannot experience joy by having vision one day and sorrow the next. I don't know if sorrow is the right word. Hatred the next day and then we're back to joy, and then back to murderous thoughts. That's not joy. So first we have to have constant vision. And how is constant vision given? Constant vision can be given only by those who wish for constancy. So now I have a new compass for joy, is the wish for constancy, which results in constant vision, which leads to joy. The course, these are the laws of healing that the Holy Spirit teaches. They are universal laws or principles that are operative throughout the entire universe. We didn't know what they were, so we were not able to be guided by them, but now we are informed and can be guided by them. And so it's a choice. You have a guidance system that you can follow for, and this appears all over the course, not here. This is one example here, but there are others as well. So it ultimately comes back to what is it that you want for yourself? What is your wish? So David, can you pick it up again by reading again, no thought, but has the power?
Where is that?
That's the next to the last line. I guess you can't see.
Oh, yeah. No thought, but has the power to release or kill. And none can leave the thinker's mind or leave him unaffected. Are thoughts then dangerous? To bodies, yes. The thoughts that seem to kill are those that teach the thinker that he can be killed. And so he dies because of what he learned. He goes from life to death, the final proof he valued the inconstant more than constancy. Surely he thought he wanted happiness, yet he did not desire it because it was the truth and therefore must be constant.
Mm-hmm. So what David just read is found in the very next section, which we'll pick up in our next session. But you can see the continuity between what we've been reading about constancy and now with the focus on that thoughts fluctuate between, he goes from life to death, thoughts will fluctuate. Say one more comment on this. A lot of, this is my observation, that many people that start A Course in Miracles and are less than 1 year into it find themselves in this middle ground. I'll call it straddling the fence, or, 1 foot in the room of the Holy Spirit, but the other foot still locked into the room of the ego, and it's an inconsistent state, and it's very stressful to be in the middle, trying to serve both thought systems. And these are honest students attempting to free themselves of the ego, but that becomes distressing, and the way they respond to it is to quit rather than continuing on working through it. So notice, the reason I bring this up is to say the solution to that is to keep moving forward, not to stop and pause. Progress will come, but it's a phase one goes through as one learns to identify the guidance, inner voice of the Holy Spirit, but is not yet free of the loud clamoring of the ego. It can be a rude state to be in, to have both voices clamoring, not clamoring, to have both voices to be confused by the two. Heather?
Yeah, thank you. I love that one you just read again. No thought, but has the power to release or kill. Coming full circle, it's exactly what Atisha was talking about. In the moment, she had the power to release this guy, whoever it was, or kill him. And I just love how that just sums it all up. Her beautiful example and her willingness to share it is right here demonstrated to say, and now look what the lesson is. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. David?
I loved what you just said a moment ago about students in the first year and being in that situation. And I'm going to share students being in it several years, being myself. And I would say that I am not.
Oh, I think we might have lost David's connection.
You probably pressed the wrong button.
Yeah, I think he did. So I'm sure he'll join back in a minute. Susie, did you have a share?
Yeah, I really, really want to say that this, I always say it's like picking a favorite child, but this has been just an extraordinary class. Extraordinary, Jonica. It's been so enlightening, empowering. I just have to say that. It's been it's just been great.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad it's worked for you. David, why don't you
I'm
start
back.
over again?
So what I was saying was, you were talking about students who early on get so conflicted about what this inner voice, be the trap of the ego versus the Holy Spirit, and which way to move, and then that they get conflicted and quit. And I just wanted to say that, having been in it for more than a year, I used to be completely trapped in my ancient prison and didn't even know that there was a prison that I was in. And then the course opened up the prison door for me so that I could see some light. But when I would go out of the prison door, I would drag the ball and chain that I had that kept me in that prison of the ego. And I'm going to say, for me, yes, the ball and chain is not there anymore, but I still have an ankle bracelet, like, that tells them, so they can follow me and know where I am and can zap me at any time. And I have not been free. And it's obviously a process. And one of the things we're talking about in this whole section, is about how to be free, how to the last unanswered question, which enables us to be free. And I'm getting there, but I'm not there. And that's the truth for me right now. And it's only a matter of changing my perspective, because as it says in here, which I thought was a great line, I hope I can find it: desire what you want and you will look on it and think it real.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously I don't want to let go of the ankle bracelet yet. I've let go of the ball and chain, but I still have got the buzzer on.
Thank you. We'll have to have a talk with your probation officer.
The sword of truth can sever that bracelet in a moment, a millimoment.
Indeed. Well, this is also, what David just shared. Okay, so I still got this. There's still something hidden that may not be something you can put your finger on, that keeps you tied to that, and you're aware of the effects, but perhaps the specific cause is not clear. And this is where the whole questioning process that Noel illustrated earlier is, well, what are the benefits I get by still being able to carry my ankle bracelet around? With the Holy Spirit's guidance, I'm not sure that anybody can do that on their own, figure the answers, even ask the right questions. But the Holy Spirit is clearly the universal guide to these matters. And she has a very invested interest in helping each one of us when we're ready to become free. So I think there's great hope. Susie?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one thing. One of the questions that I ask the Holy Spirit often is, what else? Is there anything else I need to learn from this? Is there anything else I need to understand? And I might not get the answer right away, but I do get it, you know? So that's been really helpful for me. What am I missing? What do I need to understand to help free me? And I can only get it from the Holy Spirit, as you just said.
Yeah, I'll share something here. It's short, but when I started this program, this is going back maybe 5-7 years ago. I used to ask questions, and I noticed like 3 months later, I had an answer. And it just appeared gently. I don't know, it's a Holy Spirit answer. I can't say it came from me, but there it was in my mind 3 months later. And I was very aware that sometimes these things took 3 months. And then a couple of years after that, it was only taking 2 weeks before and these are questions that were very much a part of my life at the time, that I was asking, real prayers for understanding. But 2 weeks later, I'd have an answer. And then I noticed it happened in 2 days. I would get an answer in 2 days. And only recently, in the last 6 months, have I been getting answers to my questions on the same day, but not in the same moment. It usually seems to me like I have to go out for a walk in nature, or I have to change the setting. I don't understand it completely, but it's like when I'm asking the question, I'm still in the frame of mind of I don't know what the answer is. And somehow, if I walk along the ocean or so, I'm in a different frame of mind, and all of a sudden, there's the answer. And it's not like I intellectually worked it through or anything. It was just appeared in my mind, but in the same day. And so I'm not saying that's a principle or that's the way it works for others. I'm just saying I observed this happening with myself. But I do recommend going out for a walk and praying while you're, or at least that's what, I'm a lifelong walker. I used to walk 10, 15 miles. So that's my form of getting answers. Friends, we're out of time. We'll have to pick this up again. As Susie said, very powerful class. Your contributions make such a difference. Thank you so much. And blessings and honors to you on your path. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank you, David.
Namaste.
Thank you all for all your input.
Everyone.
Thank you, David. Thanks, Jonaca.
Thank you.
Right. See y'all soon.
Yes.
Jonaca, I'd like to say something to you after you stop the recording.
Sure. Yeah, let me hit that.